It's time to get some SportSense. You're gonna get some SportSense. You better get ready for SportSense. SportSense.
Welcome back to SportSense, everyone. This is the show where we break down sports news for sports noobs. I'm Cooper Epps, here to learn about sports and sports culture from my dad, James Epps. Let's get into it. You're not my dad.
Joke's on you, buddy.
Welcome back to SportSense, everyone. Yeah, this is not my dad. This is our special guest this week, my friend Mike Moser. I'm going to let him introduce himself here in a second. First of all, this is season 2, episode 29, and we are going to continue our March Madness prep series for noobs since March Madness starts next week, I think, or at least the bracket gets announced next week, right?
Yep, Selection Sunday.
Do games start right after Selection Sunday, like day after, or when?
Usually, like the first 4 are Tuesday.
Okay,
and then just it goes right into it. So
okay, shoot. All right, so yeah, pretty much no hesitation. So
yep.
Okay, yeah. So we're gonna continue covering some basketball basics so you can appreciate the game a little bit more. I certainly don't right now. And so, Mike, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about why I called you to teach me about basketball.
Sounds good. Yeah, Cooper and I have been friends for a long time. And he knows I love sports. I've always been a big fan of sports, especially college sports. It's always been fascinating to me. I've had wonderful opportunities my last couple of years at BYU as an undergrad student, working as a practice player with the women's basketball team. So they select a group of guys just on campus, and we practiced against girls, kind of, rile them up and get them ready for their opponents. And then after doing that for a couple of years, a spot opened up on the team as a graduate assistant. Basically, it's like a good spot for people that want to go into coaching. We had a really great season. My first year, we won 27 games and only lost 2 in the regular season. Wow. And then we just had a collapse in the conference championship game against Gonzaga. And then we lost the first round of the NCAA tournament against Villanova.
What?
We had to play, I had a girl, she was the leading scorer in the country. So we just got a bad draw playing Villanova up in Michigan. So after that, the coaching staff changed, and I realized coaching wasn't for me, even though I love sports. I just like a little bit more permanent jobs. So now I just work with BYU baseball, just helping them with like travel and expense reports and stuff. But my job's a little bit more not reliant on performance, which is great.
Okay. What's your title now there?
So I'm an administrative assistant, like office assistant, just doing all the stuff that coaches have to do but don't want to do, in terms of they'd rather focus on the X's and O's, and so I can help take care of all the administrative stuff for them.
Cool. So I think I get what you're saying, but for the real sports noob, when you're talking about X's and O's, you're saying you want coaches to be able to focus on, you help them focus on the actual playmaking and actual the game. They're focusing on the game.
Yep.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, watching film, getting ready for the opponents and stuff. So,
this is getting distracted, but do coaches still, are the X's and O's drawn on a whiteboard or a chalkboard? Is that still a thing that goes on in modern coaching?
Yeah, so they always have like sidelines. They have like a small clipboard where coaches can draw stuff up. With women's basketball, we had like a big, you can kind of see it a little bit here. There's like a big whiteboard that they put a bunch of the floor stuff on with stickers so they could draw stuff up while they were getting ready. And they call it their war room as they get ready for practices and stuff. They can draw up kind of the schemes that they want to work with. So
which one is the good guys and which one's the bad guys?
For X's and O's?
Yeah.
For us, it was always X's was good. So but I don't know.
It can be whatever. Okay.
Could be different, yeah.
Okay, interesting. Well, all right. Well, yeah. So you were born to come on this podcast. I can't believe it took us a year and a half to get you on, but you've also you're also a new dad with a baby that struggles to sleep and stuff. So I felt bad asking you. So thank you so much for making
you're
making time for this today. Let's jump right into it. So I mostly wanted to ask you about basketball positions. Okay. So like
Okay.
I hear people talk about point guards mostly, I think, and then centers. I think everybody knows what a center is. It's like the really tall guy in the middle. But like, so I think a lot of people kind of get that, but let's define some of those basic positions. So yeah, what really simply, what is a point guard? Because I think that's the one I hear about the most.
Yeah, for sure. So your point guard is mostly like your floor general. He kind of initiates the offense. It gets the offense into their sets. He's usually, yeah, a little bit shorter because you want him to be quick. Last year, one of my favorite teams watching them had a 6'9" point guard. And that was super beneficial because he was still pretty fast, but he was able to see the floor a lot better. And so I think that helped with his passing and helped set up great shots for players. But yeah, your point guard's your floor general. Just kind of leads the offense into its set, and then just trying to get back, immediately after shots are to cover on defense on transition. So
Okay.
he's the leader basically usually.
Kind of quarterback ish,
Yeah, you could call it
like
that.
in basketball.
The best ones are similar to that. Really good facilitators, but then dangerous scorers as well. So
Cool. Yeah, I guess if you're on the court, you do need to be able to score at some point. You
yeah,
can't only be a leader.
and it's interesting with the kind of what you were talking about, like the positions different in terms of like no set positions. So the team that I worked with, women's basketball, we had a couple players that could fill that role of point guard. And so it was kind of depending on the defenses we were playing, like, oh, did we want this person more as a spot up shooter, or did we want them more as like leading the offense? And so it was kind of like reading the defense, watching film, and determining how they would defend us, and then figuring out which offense was going to best suit us. So
Oh, cool. Okay, yeah, you're starting to get into like team strategy, which
yep.
I want to come back to at the end. But okay, so point guard, leader, that's cool. Okay, so center is there anything more to say other than it's somebody with a lot of height that kind of sticks close to the basket?
Yeah, a couple other things. Yeah, one, they're on defense, just the rim protector. So you want them big so that if anybody comes into the basket to try to get, shots close to the rim, that they can just defend them in blocks and obviously getting rebounds. But then on the offensive set, you'll see them a lot setting screens, try to set up pick and roll actions. What can be really beneficial is if you have a big that can shoot, because instead of just setting a screen and then cutting to the hoop, they can also space out if the big tries to stay with the guard and more defend the rim, then the center can space out to get like an open three or something. So a lot of
I love
talent if you can find a big that can shoot.
the big is such a cool way to refer to the center. I
Yes.
love that. And screening is just when you kind of like block one defender so that your teammate can go up for a shot, right? Is that basically what it is?
Yeah, it's basically like technically you're supposed to plant your feet, and then
Just
just
be
kind
in
of
their
be a
way.
stationary object to get in the way of the defender.
Okay.
You see a lot of people getting away with what are called moving screens, where the defender, sometimes they call them slip screens, where, yeah, you're really not placing your feet. You're just kind of like moving in a way that would make it difficult for the defender to stick with the person with the ball.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of teams nowadays get away with or they'll extend their hip out or their arm out when they're supposed to be just stationary. But
Oh, interesting. Okay.
yeah, I heard one guy on a podcast say like, because he was the one usually setting screens, where he would purposely set like an egregious screen to start the game, just
Yeah.
a blatant offensive foul, do it on purpose, so then when the rest of the game would go on, he could get away with smaller stuff, because then the refs would be
Oh.
like, well, it wasn't as bad as his first one. So
No
I'm like, that's an
way.
interesting head game
What?
to play with the referees, where you kind of like, well, I'm doing better than I was.
That's crazy. All right, so let's move on to the lesser known positions. Shooting guard, small forward, and power forward. Are those pretty traditional positions?
Pretty traditional, yeah. You're seeing a lot where people call them stretch fours. So that's usually people that would play in that small forward position, that they're tall, but they're not really like they're not thick. They're more like just lengthy players so that they can fill the role as power forward in terms of like playing more of a near the basket style. But again, lately with like the more offensive style that we've seen from the NBA, a lot of the fours are playing out on the 3-point line. You don't see a lot of teams that have two big guys down low and doing it. There's a couple different actions you can do with having two bigger players that are slower. And so instead, they're trying to find tall guys that are quick, that can still defend decently well in terms of their length, but uh, they there's a big shift towards we need you to shoot. So
Okay. So is the point, are they called a forward because the idea is to get them, traditionally, is it to, like, you're trying to help them get closer to the basket to get a goal?
yep,
Okay.
exactly. Where the guards are more, outside on the 3-point line, your shooters usually. But yeah, we've seen
Okay.
a lot more where the forwards are being more of the shooters as well. That's the 3 and the 4, the small forward, the power forward.
So a guard is like a sniper and a forward is like I don't know,
A little bit more
shotgun,
of a tank. Yeah.
tank. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, in terms of like video game style, like yeah, the more the tanky boys,
Okay.
the
Okay.
thick boys are a little bit more your forwards, but
They play closer to the net, basically.
yep.
Okay. It's kind of like infielders versus outfielders. See, I'm mixing. I'm trying to blend the little sports knowledge I have about all sports to try to make sense of this. But I think
Yeah, I would think more like like hockey, with the forwards and the defenders, where you've
okay,
got your
defenders hang back.
defenders are hanging back. So usually, basketball, your forwards aren't attacking as much in terms of like fast transition buckets, unless you're going more of like those stretch fours, like super fast forwards. So
Okay, cool. So traditionally that makes sense. So maybe I'm picturing a basketball court. Again, traditionally, you've got the center in the middle under the basket. You've got the point guard at the top of the arc, the 3-point arc, like with the ball waiting to create a play. And then you've got, so then you got 3 players left. So do you always have like one guard and 2 forwards, or is it mixed up? Like, could you have 2 guards on either
uh,
side of
yeah,
the
whatever
3?
best fits your offense. So what we had is, we had two true bigs. So we had one girl that was almost like 7 feet tall, and
Whoa.
then another girl that wasn't super tall, but she was super strong. And so she led the country in rebounds her last 2 years. And so
Wow.
we would put both next to the basket. And then we'd have one guard on the corner, and then the small forward in the other corner. And then the point guard would come down. And then you'd have actions where you could have both bigs come up towards the top to set like double screens. Point guard could kind of pick and choose who they'd go the screen off of. And then different sets like that. So we liked where we had two people kind of in the paint. And
Okay.
then, sometimes we'd have one flash, up to the free throw line to get a catch. And then you could just turn around and dump it into the other big to where they have like a one-on-one matchup. So we
Whoa.
really were heavy on our bigs. We're like, we wanted to put it into the paint as much as possible. And then if defenses tried to crash on us, we just kick it out to the guards to shoot. So
Okay. Interesting. So given your roster, yeah, the number of each, there's basically not a set number of players representing certain positions on the court. But is it helpful as a coach to categorize your players in these classic positions, and then you can kind of take a more modern approach with the layout, kind of like what you're saying?
yeah, I think from what I observed with the coaches, it was really nice to have players have one designated position so that you could work on your sets and they would know this is my role, in our offense. We did start to see towards, after a few weeks into the season, players start to get that familiarized. Then the coach was really emphasizing, okay, I want you to know all positions that you would possibly play. So like our smallest players, we never throw them in at center, of course, but they could play, 1 through 3, point guard, shooting guard, small forward.
Yeah, okay.
And so coach was really heavy, like, hey, I need you for all our plays. You need to know 1 through 3 what they do and be able to be comfortable in that in a game to where I can call something and you're not scrambling or you have to switch positions with someone. So
Interesting. Okay.
So I think there's a lot of utility to knowing, okay, this is my role. Like that's how I would prefer to play as opposed to the role can fluctuate. Just because I like structure, I think structure is really good for me. But if you have a player that can play, 3 positions super efficiently and highly effectively, then that's,
Yeah, that's
your
amazing.
play. That's your star
Yeah,
player. So
for sure. So when I'm watching March Madness, if I do, it will like when it shows their little picture and name at the bottom of the screen, does it usually label them with kind of their position? Like, I guess,
yeah.
do the
So
broadcasters help
usually
me with following the players at all?
the broadcasters should help. There should be like a thing right at the start of the game where it kind of compare the starting lineups, and that'll put them through positions 1 through 5. But mostly it's just understanding kind of how the school plays, and so like a lot of times in March where you'll see like upsets is from these small schools is they just have a ton of shooters, and so they just randomly have a game where they can just shoot out the lights where, maybe a bigger school has, well, we have these true, you know, structured positions. But when they come up with a team that's just like, well, we just shoot the ball and everybody can shoot. And so we just throw around and everybody spaces out. There's a set called 5 out where basically you don't even have the center near the basket at all on offense. And so players just kind of cut. They can set screens away from the ball. So if you've got a guy that can shoot really well and but it's a hard time getting him the ball because the defense is cutting him off, you can set a screen away from the ball to help him, get away from his defender, kind of open up some space for him. So those teams that I've seen in March have been like really difficult to defend because you kind of got to defend 1 through 5. And if you have a center that's a little bit slower, and then suddenly he's asked, hey, the guy that you're defending can shoot threes and run around the court.
Oh, yeah.
It gets a little bit tougher. And so,
Interesting.
yeah. So usually, they'll show a starting lineup, but I guess it just depends on the team style play.
So, okay, let's get into that. Do schools develop a particular style that they play all season where you can kind of look forward to seeing a more aggressive Duke or something in a game in a given year? Or is it kind of like case by case where coaches are like, okay, this team, we seem to do a lot of this, so we're going to change our strategy and style for this one game? You know what I mean? Like, which is it more case by case, or do teams kind of have a signature style throughout a entire season?
Yeah, my experience is teams will have a signature style and then they just try to adapt it based on their opponents. So, for instance, with the first head coach that I was with, Coach Judkins, he played, it was called just a motion offense. So we didn't really have a whole lot of set plays, but we just practiced a ton of screens away from the ball, cuts, back cuts, double screens, all kinds of stuff. And then he just trusted the players to do that kind of thing on the court without him telling you, okay, here's where you're going to go. Here's what you're going to do. And so we were just moving around the court the whole game. But then when we would play a team like Portland, so Portland, their coach strictly played zone the entire game because he wanted to focus all their practice efforts, most of their practice efforts on offense because he had all these crazy offensive plays with weird sets, really hard to defend. But they never had to work on defense because they only played zone. And so they worked on it a little bit, knowing where to move. But for our offense, that made it really difficult because you're cutting and doing all those things. That's a little bit more challenging through a zone to kind of get passes inside because the defense can collapse so well. And so we kind of had to tailor, because that was a game before the conference championship games. We had to tailor more of shooting, just finding, okay, how we're going to find ways to get just people open shots. And so it was a little bit of a different, as opposed to getting towards the basket. It was more about, okay, we need open shots on the outside and then working with our players. So my experience, I've seen head coaches like have an identity for their team, and then they just try to tailor it toward their opponent.
Okay.
But like for instance, like St. Mary's men's basketball, they were very slow paced. They would hold it to the end of the shot clock and take a shot. And so for teams like BYU, men's basketball, where it's super high paced, they'll take a shot in the first 5 seconds of the shot clock if they've got an open. It would be really hard to get momentum because we take a shot quick, and if you miss, and then St. Mary's is just nice and slow. They get a bucket, you come down, shoot and miss again, nice and slow. It was really hard to get into a rhythm.
Yeah.
You don't touch the ball every couple minutes. So
Interesting.
hard to tailor for them. Yeah.
So BYU is playing West Virginia today. It's a rematch. I remember earlier in the season, I happened to watch this game, and I remember the announcer saying that West Virginia likes to control the tempo and slow it down a lot, kind of like what you're saying about St. Mary's. So
exactly.
Why don't that's a dumb question. I was gonna say, why don't all teams play like that? But I guess there's pros and cons to every approach, right?
Yeah, pros and cons. Because if you're super effective and efficient at the high paced offense when you're playing a team that is willing to go high paced or doesn't have like a super established offense, and so like if they get down, they start to panic a little bit, then you can really run up the score quick because you can start forcing turnovers because they start to force things. Where St. Mary's in West Virginia are really good is they practice to really hold it out, be really efficient, and then try to get a shot late in the shot clock. And so even if they're down, if they're down big, they kind of got to change because they got to score points fast. But if they're only down a few points, they can still keep that up. And then if they're winning, it really benefits because then it's really hard for teams to come back fast because they're just going to hold it. So
cool.
Pros and cons. Yeah, if you're losing, it's a really bad style of play. But if you're winning, it can be super beneficial to slowing teams' ability to come back.
Okay. Let's say you could have your dream team, like whatever players you wanted. What's your favorite style of play? Like, what would you coach your players to do?
Yeah, I love the run and gun. It's just more exciting. Like, I hated it was East Coast ball is what we would call it like a few years ago, like teams like Virginia and stuff. They'd win a game and the final score was like 46-38. It's just super boring, super slow. Like just a disaster to watch, even if it is like, sound basketball and, fundamentally sound basketball. Where I love games that are like 101-98 in overtime. Like I love high scoring games, fast pace, big transition dunks and stuff. So that would be what I would coach. But I could see it getting, because every time BYU plays St. Mary's, I was frustrated. Even when we won, I was still frustrated because they were just so slow. And it's like, just let us, score. Let us try to play.
Yeah.
And so I like run and gun, but it's not as effective when you're playing against, the slower paced teams. So
yeah. So run and gun just means let's get the ball down the court as fast as possible, take a shot as fast as possible.
Yeah. And so our coach with women's basketball, we would have a certain number of people that we would send in to rebound, offense and defense, which I thought was interesting sometimes because we'd give up a few offensive rebounds, but he would have guards running towards the basket sometimes when a shot was even taken.
Whoa.
And so then the second because we'd be confident we'd get the rebound given our size. And so we'd get a rebound and we'd try to kick it out and shoot within 5-10 seconds.
Okay.
Just because we knew if we caught them on their heels, they weren't as good getting back. And, people would start to get lost in coverage of like, oh, crap, they're running super fast. I lost my player. Where are they at? And the next thing you know, they're getting a wide open shot.
Yeah.
So different styles like that. And then you have, on offense where sometimes we'd have, okay, we're going to crash everybody. Every time there's a shot, everybody go in to try to get a rebound just to kind of keep that offensive pressure up. So,
okay, cool. Well, man, I've got like more questions for you, but we got to call it. You're a hardworking man. You were up all night with the baby. So,
well, thanks, dude.
let me just ask you about one thing from our mailbag. So my brother-in-law told me about a player from Michigan State University who they're one of the top ranked teams this season, apparently. And they have a player named Jeremy Fears Jr. Are you familiar with him?
Not super duper.
Apparently he's known for kicking up his leg behind him between players' legs. And this is men's basketball, so extra sensitive, So apparently
I did see a few of his plays.
Okay,
I didn't know that connect the name, but I saw a few of his plays against Michigan where he was kicking his legs out, tripping guys and stuff. It reminds me a lot of Grayson Allen from Duke.
Okay.
He was just really known. He just stick his legs out and trip people all the time. And then complain when he'd get a whistle. So he's one to look up. If you can look up Grayson Allen tripping highlights.
Okay.
He is a clown. So
is he still playing? Is he in the NBA or anything?
Yeah, he's in the NBA. I know he's kind of been transitioning with teams. There was a highlight recently of him taking a shot where he took like 7 steps and
no way.
Yeah, no travel call. So
travel
makes the NBA tough to watch.
Yeah. Travel is one thing. I've asked my dad. I'm like, I swear that guy took like 10 steps right there. Like, why? Like when I was a kid, you got so mad at me for not dribbling. If I took 1 step. Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, that's a whole other topic. But yeah, so what is your feeling about people who play a little dirty like that, who kick them in the crotch a little bit or do some trips, or is it just part of the game? Or I mean, you're allowed a certain amount of fouls before you're ejected, so why not?
Right.
I don't know.
I love and I wish basketball had this from hockey. I love the enforcers from hockey, where if there's some guy doing something dumb, you have a guy designated to be like, hey, go create some justice on the ice, or in basketball on the court. Just like go take him out. And so I wish there was more of that in basketball. I see where, the league and officials would have a problem with it. But I think that was more the case, back in the day with like Jordan and, Stockton and Malone, where you'd have guys going to the hoop and some big guy would just take him out. And, Isaiah Thomas, and you'd have some guy just throw him to the ground. And so there was a lot of fights back in the day, but yeah, I wish there was a little bit more leeway for the players to kind of resolve things on the court.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that would solve problems instead of them like having to complain to the refs, like, hey, this dude's kicking me. Like, what are we going to do about it? So
interesting. Okay. Well, Jeremy Fears, he's putting fear into me for sure. I would not want to step on a court with legs kicking up between my legs. My gosh. So bless the hearts of anybody playing against him this week, or in March Madness. So, well, Mike, thank you so much. I'll let you get out of here. But any other wisdom you want to leave with a new basketball watcher?
Yeah, I think really the thing that I learned was watching what the players do that don't have the ball. I think as like a young fan of basketball, that's what all I would watch is like, okay, who's got the ball? What is he going to do? But as I've, worked with the team and practiced with the team, learning like, okay, well, what does Steph Curry and all these players do to get open so that they get the ball and get to make all these shots? I think that made the game a lot more fun when you can kind of see, oh, this is what the coach is thinking when he's drawing up these plays to give his best player, this perfect shot. We're all from the normal eye you see is like, oh, well, Steph Curry just hit a big 3, but others are like watching like, oh my gosh, he had to run around for 30 seconds, offense and defense, just to get open. So
yeah,
I think that's more fun when you start watching what players do when they don't have the ball.
That's a really cool tip. Okay, I'm going to try that this year during March Madness. So thanks so much, man. I'll let you know how it goes. All right. Well, Mike, thanks for coming on to SportSense. We are going to wrap this thing up. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed on all our platforms. We got YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course, we're on the socials at SportSense Podcast. Hit us up there if you want us to talk about anything in the mailbag segment. And with that, we will see you guys next week. All right.
Thanks, Cooper.
See you, Mike.
Sports Sense.